If she were to win this election, it would create an unprecedented constitutional crisis. In that situation, we could very well have a sitting president under felony indictment and ultimately a criminal trial.
The throwback. Back in 2016, while taking shots at his opponent Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump seemed to be saying there was no way the country could handle a president on trial for a crime. So what's he saying today? I'm Gadi Schwartz, and this is Stay Tuned Now. And we are following the aftermath of former President Trump's historic criminal conviction after 12 New Yorkers found him guilty on 34 counts of falsifying business records. And it all happened last night after a quick two-day deliberation. Now, Trump kept his comments pretty short yesterday, but today he held a press conference at Trump Tower in New York and railed on for close to 40 minutes, attacking everyone involved in the case, calling the judge conflicted, DA Alvin Bragg failed, Michael Cohen a sleazebag, and the whole case rigged.
This is a scam. There's a rigged trial. It shouldn't have been in that venue. We shouldn't have had that judge. He should have allowed us to have an election expert. So we're going to be appealing this scam. The judge was a tyrant. This was standard stuff, all standard stuff. Everything involved was standard. There was no crime here.
Now, if the background might seem familiar, that's because it is. Those are the escalators that Donald Trump came down in 2015 to announce his first presidential bid. And that building is technically what the jury found to be the scene of a crime. Trump now facing sentencing July 11th, just 4 days before Trump is scheduled to take the stage at the Republican National Convention as the GOP presidential nominee. What kind of appeal he could try for before then? Well, that's still yet to be seen. Let's bring in NBC's Dasha Burns, who's been covering this for what seems like forever now. Dasha, Trump's lawyers are saying an appeal is coming. Any details on that today?
Yeah, that's exactly right. They say they're going to do that process pretty quickly, so they can quickly file an appeal, Gadi. The problem is that an appeal takes a long time. The process is drawn out, sometimes for months, sometimes even for years. Now, of course, this is a unique case, so it might get fast-tracked, but nevertheless, it's unlikely that we're going to see an end to the process of appealing this case anytime soon.
So what happens now? Is it kind of back to the campaign trail until sentencing?
I think that's exactly the plan. We don't have any campaign events on the schedule that we're aware of. He's really been focusing on fundraisers lately. So we'll see if and when he hits the campaign trail itself. But the campaign has been touting those fundraising numbers, saying they raised $34.8 million in the time between when the verdict was announced and midnight last night, pointing to that as sort of an example of how much his supporters are rallying around him because of this verdict, Gadi.
And speaking of sentencing, have we heard anything from Judge Merchan since? Because Trump didn't seem to be holding back on the same judge today who will be in charge of deciding whether he gets jail time or not. What's going on there?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, the former president, as you know, is not one to hold back. In that presser today, he lashed out at Judge Merchan, lashed out at DA Bragg, President Biden, the trial itself. He even went after Michael Cohen, not by name, but it was very clear whom he was talking about. And that, of course, is a witness. He's not supposed to talk about witnesses or jurors under the gag order. So we're looking to see if there's any sort of formal violation, any penalty like he's seen before. But, you know, this is how he is using his time. He wants to defend himself. And today, in that 40-minute, really kind of campaign-style speech, he did just that. Whether that hurts him with the judge and the sentencing, we'll have to see, Gadi.
And Dasha, Trump and the RNC, they've been bragging about how much they're fundraising, millions yesterday, possibly millions today. How does this compare with the other times Trump has seemed to turn legal problems into like a campaign fundraising bonanza?
Yeah, I mean, this has sort of blown it out of the water. The one caveat here is we can't independently confirm these numbers because of the way financial disclosures are sort of delayed, but we can tell you what the campaign is telling us, which is, those millions of dollars. And that is significant. And they are pointing to that, again, to show that he can rally the troops around him right now. I will tell you that we have seen a flurry of campaign fundraising emails and text messages. I mean, they've been coming one after the other, a lot of them branding the former president as a political prisoner. And I don't think we're going to see those slow down anytime soon as they try to capitalize politically off of this moment, make that a good moment for him politically, even if it's bad for him legally, Gadi.
Dasha Burns, thank you. Let's bring in NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos. Danny, so if you were Trump's defense lawyer at this point, what would you do to file a successful appeal?
I'd wait until the sentencing, because that's when the clock starts on the 30 days to file the notice of appeal. And then you file it. It's just a single piece of paper. It's not a very significant document. But then the real work begins. Then you have to prepare a brief, and that takes months, if not years. And you have to assemble the record. But really, a lot of the work is going to be done before sentencing, because, people don't put a lot of importance on sentencing. It's quietly, in my view, every bit as important as the guilt phase. You have two phases. You have the guilt phase. That's now over. We're now going to the punishment phase. And the punishment phase is often far more important to clients than the guilt phase, because that decides whether or not they go to prison and have to wear the orange jumpsuit. So that's doubly important now, because we're dealing with a presidential candidate and a former president who could theoretically go to jail, although it's not likely.
And Danny, if you had a client who theoretically was in the exact same position as the former president is in right now, what would you tell him about the gag order? Because today we saw him talking about two witnesses that I thought he was under court order not to put on blast, as well as the judge, as well as, Cohen, even though he didn't specifically name Cohen. It felt like at some points, and not to diminish what was going on, but it was almost like it's when you got little kids that are like, I'm not touching you, and they just keep getting very, very close to touching each other. What would you tell them about the gag order?
There's this misperception among people, including judges, and they seem to think that the lawyer-client relationship is boss-employee or parent-child. It is not. They pay lawyers like me for the privilege of bossing us around and telling us what they want done. A lot of it we cannot do for them. But to some degree, of course, you have to take your client to the horse shed, as it's called, yell at the client if they're misbehaving, but ultimately they can choose to disregard what you tell them. Clients all the time disregard advice of counsel. In fact, a lot of clients think they know what's best for themselves, not realizing that thinking they know what's best for themselves is why they had to hire a criminal defense lawyer in the first place. So look, his lawyers are probably telling him, you should probably dial it down. Or maybe they're not telling him anything. Maybe that's baked into the job of being Donald Trump's lawyer at this point, many years into everybody knowing what you get if Donald Trump hires you. So I believe Todd Blanche during his interviews, including on the Today Show this morning, where he said, look, he's out there. He feels he needs to speak. And I'm paraphrasing what Todd Blanche said, Donald Trump's attorney. But I don't think Todd Blanche told him a whole lot, because I don't think it would make a difference.
Okay, so here's another hypothetical, probably a dumb question, but if no one is telling him to not say those things and to restrain himself when it comes to the gag order, could that be grounds for, ineffective counsel?
No, as long as you paper the file, as long as you tell the client, look, you need to do something. Clients disregard what their lawyers tell them to do all the time. Clients get into trouble before trial and during trial for misbehavior like this, because clients take matters into their own hands. The most common example is a client reaching out to a witness. A client's looking around, probably thinking, I don't understand what's going on with this trial. My lawyers are saying a bunch of mumbo jumbo, it's legalese, but I know that witness out there. I should probably get word to him that maybe he shouldn't come testify. Unfortunately, it happens all the time. It's witness intimidation. No lawyer in their right mind would ever encourage it, tolerate it, or accept it, or if they heard even a hint that that was going on, would they allow it? But it happens all the time against the advice of counsel. I can't think of a single instance where counsel gives the advice to not screw up during trial, to not violate the judge's pretrial release conditions, and that advice being a basis for an appeal. It simply wouldn't. The lawyer, everybody gets it. The client will disregard the lawyer's advice to behave before and during trial at their own peril.
Well, if I ever get in trouble, I will listen to you very, very closely. Danny Savalos, thank you very much.
I require a retainer.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump said himself that the real verdict will come in November. So how are voters reacting to this news? Here's what some of them had to say in the battleground states of Arizona, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin.
I think this is going to actually help Trump because the people that were maybe undecided and more middle of the road probably see this as a political persecution.
I think it was rigged, the whole thing. I don't think he was, they didn't really have a crime for him.
How does that change anything for you and how you view Donald Trump?
I mean, I didn't like him in the first place, so that's about it.
You voted for Biden in 2020.
Yeah.
You plan on supporting Trump this time around?
Yes, 100%.
Despite the news of his conviction?
Yes. They're both not the greatest, but I'm going to go with Trump because it was a much better place.
Now let's head to another battleground state, Nevada, where NBC News correspondent David Noriega joins us from Washoe County. David, that is a bellwether county, if I understand it correctly. What are you hearing from voters there?
So, Gadi, the thing that we've been hearing most consistently that really stood out for me from people across the spectrum in terms of their opinion about Trump, people who hate him, people who love him, people somewhere in between, is that what happened yesterday, the trial and the verdict, do not offer any new information that changes the essential perception of Donald Trump, the public figure, the character that we all know. As a result, it doesn't seem to be pushing people meaningfully in either direction. We interviewed several people today, again, across the spectrum. Very few of them, really none of them, said that this was going to immediately influence their decision to vote. I want to play you a few clips of the people we spoke to. Take a look.
I think it was absolutely bogus. I think it's going to help him win in November.
Tell me more.
I have been a Trump supporter since 2016, voted for him twice, planning on voting again. Yesterday just cemented that fact for me.
It seems pretty clear that, actual crimes happen.
If that's what they feel the evidence is indicating, then I think it's correct. And it doesn't surprise me, to be honest with you.
It doesn't surprise me. That's the key right there, Gadi. And, it's remarkable, I think, that something this momentous could happen, something this historic, and we would be having such a hard time assessing or measuring what kind of effect it's going to have on the election. But that just sort of speaks to, the trajectory that Donald Trump has been on until now. And it speaks to how, I think, disaffected people are in general with the candidates that they have to choose from in this election. Gadi?
David, I'm so glad you brought all that up, and I'm hoping that we could peel back another layer here. I think in the news, a lot of times we see something like this, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is a center of the universe. Everybody is talking about this. Everybody has an opinion. And yet, when you're out in the field and you're going to try to interview people, like a lot of times people are just like, and we don't tell the story of the people that didn't want to be interviewed because they didn't even have an opinion. So I want to ask you, like, when you were going out and talking to people, did everybody want to talk, or did you get a lot of shrugs like, yeah, we kind of saw the headlines, but whatever?
It's always true that a lot of people don't want to talk. I will say I was actually pretty surprised by how much people were plugged into what was happening, given that we were just sort of stopping a random sample of people on the street. Generally speaking, people knew that this had happened. They'd been paying some degree of attention to the trial. Some people were actually extremely well informed and had gone pretty deep and knew all the details. The other thing, Gadi, is that in a bellwether state like a bellwether county like this one, as you said, where the numbers for the last several presidential elections have been quite tight, right? The Democrats have taken the last, since 2016, have taken the presidential election here in Washoe County. But the margins are pretty slim. And if you look at average polling for the whole state of Nevada, Trump is actually ahead by a pretty substantial amount, by 5 points. But this is really, the trial and the verdict are really more of a wild card than anything. And we actually interviewed someone else. We interviewed a guy who's a local conservative AM talk radio host. So he talks to a lot of conservatives here in Washoe County. They're callers into his show. He has a pretty good finger on the pulse of kind of the right here in Washoe County, and he said something interesting. I asked him, have you spoken to any people who were going to vote for Trump but are now considering not voting for Trump as a result of the fact that he now has a felony conviction on his record? Here's what he said.
I have not heard that yet, but I think as time goes on and I think as people process this, this is going to be something that they consider. I'm not sure that they'll call into the show and say that, but I think...
Why is that?
Well, because, again, this is a conservative talk show.
So he thinks, Gadi, that we might actually be seeing something that's the inverse of what happened in 2016, where a lot of people were going to vote for Trump but didn't say so publicly because there was some stigma around it. Now he thinks that there might actually be something of the opposite. Now, of course, there's no real way to prove that, but I thought it was an interesting idea, and it speaks to how really unpredictable the consequences of this verdict might be between now and November. Gadi?
Yeah, interesting theory and quite the pulse in the biggest little city in the world, Reno, Nevada. Thank you so much, David. Earlier today, the Texas Supreme Court shot down a challenge to the state's very strict abortion ban that would have carved out medical exemptions for women with dangerous or complicated pregnancies. Now, the case was first filed by 5 women in March of last year who say they were denied an abortion despite having complicated pregnancies. That case eventually grew to 20 women and 2 doctors and led to a temporary injunction. But that wasn't enough to sway the 9 justices who overturned that injunction today. Now, abortions in Texas are banned entirely except if it is to save a mother's life. And doctors who violate that ban could face big consequences, including losing their medical license and facing life in prison. NBC News correspondent Marissa Parra joins us now. Marissa, can you walk us through the ruling a bit more? Because this wasn't a case where they were trying to repeal the entire ban, right? Just asking for a little more clarity on what's allowed?
Correct. Of course, abortion rights advocates within the state of Texas would eventually like to repeal the ban, but this really was centered around clarity. And so there was a lot of back and forth. You mentioned how this originally started with a lawsuit filed by 5 women, and it has grown since then. There's been a lot of back and forth since then. And so, in short, what we saw today is the Texas Supreme Court, which is made up of Republican justices, unanimously decided to shoot down what was the toughest legal challenge yet to a very strict abortion law that stands right now. And so the idea being there was this injunction that had been filed last year. This injunction granted, temporary protections for, we're talking about medical providers as well as women who have complicated pregnancies when there is, quote, good faith judgment made on behalf of the medical provider. And so there was a lot of criticism about this. And so what we saw was medical providers were saying the good faith judgment allowed them some flexibility when there's a lot of vague language surrounding the abortion law. You talked about the criticism when it comes to medical providers, the punishments that they can face, the prison time, the fees. And so actually, I'll point out that in this lawsuit, it wasn't just women who filed, but it was also 2 OBGYN doctors, Gadi. And so what they're saying is the wording in the abortion ban is currently too vague for them to be able to make those judgment calls. That injunction was filed that then today was overturned. And the Supreme Court justices said in that opinion, the law is very clear as it is written. In short, Gadi.
How are people from both sides of this abortion fight feeling about the ruling?
So we actually spoke directly to people from both sides. We are going to hear in just a moment from Amanda Zarowski, who is the lead plaintiff in that lawsuit that was filed by over 20 women. And then we're going to hear from John Seago, who is from the Texas Right to Life. And so they have very different interpretations, and I'll explain a little bit more in just a moment. But here's part of our interview with both of them.
It's gut-wrenching. It's pretty heartbreaking that the Texas Supreme Court made it very clear today that they do not wish to help pregnant Texans.
The court really was faithful to the law and clarified, exactly what the law says and how it should be interpreted.
So when I spoke to Mr. Seago, who you heard from just now, and I asked him, what do you say to the doctors and to pregnant women like Zarowski, who we just heard from at the start there, about the fact that they say that there are more lives that will be at risk because of the vague nature of the law as it stands. And Seago really stood his ground and said he really thinks that it's the medical providers who are not doing their job. He said that he thought it was malpractice, what Zarowski went through. And I asked the Center for Reproductive Rights quickly, Gadi, what their thoughts were on all of this. And they said the number one concern that they have is, yes, the law is as it stands. It protects women when their life is at risk, but they say say, at what point does that exception kick in when it comes to the woman's life at risk, Gadi?
Marissa Parra, thank you so much. And tonight we are learning more about that tragic building explosion in Youngstown, Ohio, and it killed one person, put 7 others in the hospital. You may have seen this video. Today, the NTSB says it thinks the blast was caused by a natural gas leak, and the building had a Chase Bank on the ground level. A 27-year-old employee, Akil Drake, was the person killed. And NBC News correspondent Morgan Chesky joins us now with a little bit more on what happened. Morgan, do we know what happened on the day of the blast?
Yeah, Gadi, what was so interesting from this NTSB press conference today is they kind of laid a very tragic timeline on what led up to that explosion, saying that there was a crew of 4 individuals inside this building's basement, and initially their job was to clear out debris for a renovation project. They began to make a series of cuts on what they thought was a dormant gas line, and they didn't make one cut, but it was 2 and then a 3rd cut. And that was the cut, Gadi, that led these 4 construction workers in the basement to realize something had gone horribly wrong. They began to smell gas. They went upstairs, immediately alerted everyone on the ground floor, called 911. They did their best to evacuate that 13-story building as much as possible. But unfortunately, what happened next was that tragic explosion that left one bank employee dead. We've seen some surveillance video, Gadi, that's incredibly harrowing, with a mother carrying her young child down a stairwell seconds before this explosion took place. I want you to hear from what one of the investigators had to say just regarding the state of that building right now.
There are very serious concerns about the integrity and the safety of the structure. Consequently, access is not currently possible by us nor by anyone until appropriate determinations are made regarding its safety.
So this investigation is still very much ongoing, Gadi, and as a result, no one's being allowed inside the building. NTSB says they're going to be on site for at least several more days, gathering as much evidence, as much video footage as they can as well, in hopes of learning more here.
Yeah, it seems like this is one of those cases. Sometimes when NTSB steps in or we see something like this, it takes days, sometimes weeks to know exactly what happened. But the level of detail with the construction crew down there, the line being cut, the evacuation that they helped with. I mean, is there anybody that's getting the bulk of the blame here, or did everything go right and was this just a tragic accident?
Still very much a big question here. We do know that this was a line that appeared to be dormant. No smell of gas emanated from this pipe throughout this process by the construction crew leading up until that 3rd cut. It was running parallel with a gas main that was right under, as you can see, one of the main streets there in Youngstown. And so we do know a 3rd party had cut the line. That's going to be one of the biggest questions going forward here as to whose fault was this? Was this a line that should have been cut off months, years ago, and simply wasn't? Was this an active leak? Still part of the investigation.
How about the victim? What else do we know about the victim and the other victims that are recovering in the hospital?
Right. A young bank employee here, Akil Blake. We know that he was found in the debris in the basement of this building. Firefighters saying that they were not going to leave the scene until he had been recovered. A 27-year-old, but Gadi, he grew up in this community. We heard from the mayor of the city saying he had to make one of the worst calls ever to Akil's mother, saying that he wouldn't be coming home that night. He was a standout football athlete at his high school. As for those 7 others who were hospitalized as a result, we do know that 4 have been released. 3 remain in an area hospital in stable condition tonight.
Oh, man, our thoughts go out to Akil's family. Morgan, thank you. In breaking news, there is a fire burning right now in Vacaville, California, on prison property about 45 miles outside of Sacramento. Now, you can see some of these images of that fire raging right now on your screen. We don't know how that fire started, but the local fire department has confirmed that they are providing aid with a couple of engines and a battalion chief. This is still a developing story, so we'll keep an eye on it. And don't go anywhere. We are just getting started. Up next, President Biden drops a new ceasefire plan to end violence between Israel and Hamas. But how's it going over in the Middle East tonight? NBC's Josh Litterman has those details. Plus, you may have missed another big guilty verdict yesterday. Chad Daybell was convicted of murdering his ex-wife and his 2 stepkids. And we might learn any minute now if a jury thinks he should face the death penalty. And a little later this hour, we are talking about, honestly, one of my greatest fears, supermassive black holes, cosmic mysteries that are billions and billions of times bigger than our sun. And we're now learning a lot more of what they kind of sound like when they crash into each other. We've got a leading astrophysicist standing by to explain it way better than I can, so stay tuned. Hey, welcome back. It looks like Israel may have a plan to end fighting in the Middle East. We're going to get to that in a moment. But first, let's take a quick look around the world. Russia has launched a sweeping assault on Ukraine, and we are learning that President Biden has secretly allowed Ukraine to use specific U.S. weapons to strike back inside of Russia. Now, there were a lot of stipulations, and the decision only applies to some of the weapons provided by the U.S. and only in the Kharkiv region, where Russia has recently crossed the border. And at least 33 people have died from apparent heat stroke in India. Extreme temperatures have gripped parts of that country for the last few days, and it also comes in the middle of a landmark election there. We've learned some election officials on duty were among the heat stroke victims. Voting there wraps up this weekend. And about a half a dozen people were hurt in a knife attack in Germany. A man stabbed 6 people who were part of some sort of anti-political Islam group. Police there ended up shooting and killing that suspect. And Paris officials say they have busted a plot to target a soccer stadium at the upcoming Olympics. They've filed terrorism charges against a teenager who apparently was trying to target fans on behalf of ISIS. France is on its highest threat level alert ahead of the games. Some potential big news in the Middle East. Is an end to the war in Gaza possibly on the horizon? Well, today, President Biden announced that Israel has proposed a 3-part plan to do just that. And NBC News international correspondent Josh Letterman breaks it down for us.
Gadi, the White House says that this Israeli proposal is a new offer, and President Biden says it would essentially end the war in Gaza. Now, that is notable. It appears to be a shift from the previous Israeli offers, and it comes as just this week, Israeli officials were suggesting this war could go on until the end of the year. And so the way that this plan would work, according to President Biden, is in 3 phases. In the first phase, you would see Israel withdraw from the populated areas of Gaza, and there would be an exchange of Palestinian prisoners in exchange for some Israeli hostages, women and the elderly. And then after about 6 weeks, they would negotiate a second phase, which would see more hostages released, including male Israeli soldiers, and a full Israeli withdrawal from the Gaza Strip. That essentially would be an end to the war. They're calling that a permanent ceasefire. And then in the third phase, they hope to see the beginning of reconstruction of the Gaza Strip, of all of the buildings and schools and houses and hospitals that have been destroyed over many months of war. But there is still so much we don't know about this, including whether the version that President Biden put forward is the version that Israel actually agrees with. In fact, in a statement tonight from Prime Minister Netanyahu, he is suggesting that what Israel is still envisioning here would involve the full dismantling of Hamas as a governing and military organization before the war ends. That essentially would mean Hamas agreeing to its own demise. That is something they have not been willing to agree to in the past. And so we're still waiting to see exactly how that is going to play out. But Hamas tonight saying they do view this as American proposal, or the way that the Americans have presented this proposal involving the Israelis, as a positive step forward. And they are crediting their own resistance over the last many months with putting pressure on Israel to come back to the table for a deal. Gadi.
Josh Letterman, hopefully peace is in the horizon there. Thank you. And Mexico is on the verge of a historic election where this weekend voters will likely elect the country's first woman president. But campaigning has been bogged down by violence. Just this week, a mayoral candidate was shot and killed at a campaign stop. And his assassination means that since the official electoral process kicked off last September, more than 30 Mexican candidates have been killed. Whoever wins Sunday's election will have to work hard to rein in that violence and bring together a deeply divided country. Let's bring in NBC News correspondent Gadi Venegas, who's in Mexico City for us tonight. Gad, thanks for joining us. Let's start with the political violence. I mean, 34 killings marking this campaign season is terrifying. How are people reacting?
And Gadi, you know, when you look at that number 34, that was a report released earlier this week. The assassination that took place will increase that number. We spoke with the political consultants that have been sharing a lot of these statistics, Integralia. They told us today they're going to be updating that number because another person was also assassinated. So you can see the violence still taking place. And, you know, the violence happening during this election cycle is a reflection of what's happening in Mexico. As you speak to citizens, to voters here, the first thing they bring up, Gadi, as a concern is the violence, the issues with public safety. And what's been happening during this election cycle demonstrates how vulnerable people are in Mexico. It's not only candidates that have been assassinated. You've got people working for political campaigns, relatives, bystanders that were at a lot of these events, and they were just standing in the wrong place, and they were also shot and killed. There's just been a lot of blood related to the election, but also to organized crime in Mexico. So it's a complex issue that is on the mind of voters as they head to the polls on Sunday. We're going to hear from some of the voters that I spoke to this week.
I live with fear. I arrive home with fear. I live with the keys in my hands, like basically expecting don't be attacked.
It's a lot of violence, and even as a citizen, I don't feel so safe being in the street.
And Gadi, as we speak to a lot of experts about organized crime, about the violence, trying to find out exactly what's happening in Mexico, essentially there's two big challenges that Mexico's facing. One is a change in democracy. Over the last 2 decades, Mexico has become much more democratic. More political parties have power, so you've got candidates both running at a state level, at a federal level from different parties. So the government has also seen a lot of division. So it's been very difficult for police agencies to coordinate when you sometimes have a governor from one party, you have a mayor from the opposing party, and maybe the president from the third party. On top of that, impunity seems to affect the entire country. We speak to experts who say that criminals in Mexico get away with things that they don't get away with in other countries. More than 90% of criminals get away with murder in Mexico because these issues are not investigated, because they're not prosecuted. So these are the issues that the next president will have to tackle as the voters head to the polls on Sunday. Gadi?
Yeah, that 90% is so terrifying. This election will be historic either way presidentially, because it seems like the likely next leader of Mexico will be a woman. What kind of ripple effects do you think that will send across Mexico when it comes to impunity, when it comes to healing some of the divide that we see today in Mexico?
You know, Gadi, when we talk to voters about the election, they say, well, we're facing the violence. This is something that Mexico needs to fix. But the bright future is the fact that Mexico, for the first time in its 200-year history, will have a woman as president, most likely, right? Because the leading candidate, Claudia Sheinbaum, is most likely going to win, according to the polls. And then the runner-up is Xochitl Gálvez, another woman representing the opposition. So Mexico has seen a lot of change. And if you look at Mexican politics, this is a positive, especially for the feminist movement here. About half of legislators in Mexican Congress are also women. So this is a change that has been happening in Mexico as the country has become much more democratic. And now Mexicans are looking forward to electing its first woman president here in Mexico. So that does bring a lot of excitement. And also another issue that they're going to be placing a lot of attention to is femicides. Gadi, back to you.
Gadi Venegas, incredible reporting. Thank you for joining us. And coming up, a police officer ambushed and killed in Minneapolis. We're going to tell you how he was caught in that line of fire. But first, you got to see this. This was a cop car that crashed and flipped through an intersection in Santa Clarita, California. The deputy inside was responding to a burglary in the area when an elderly driver crashed into him, sending that cruiser flying into another car before flipping there. The deputy was hurt, but he's expected to be okay. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back. Details behind that deadly shooting of a Minneapolis police officer are coming up. But first, here are some of the other headlines we're watching tonight. 6 million people are at risk for severe weather from Colorado to Texas. It's where hail, strong winds, and tornadoes are the biggest threat right now. And some areas could see hail that is the size of a softball. 3 million people in Texas are also under flood watches. And Michelle Triconis, the Connecticut woman convicted of helping her boyfriend murder his estranged wife back in 2019, was sentenced to 20 years in prison. But she'll only have to serve 14 and a half years, and then her sentence will be suspended. Her sentencing comes 5 years and 1 week after Jennifer Dulos disappeared after dropping her 5 kids off at school. And 3 people are in custody in connection to an attack that took place during the middle of the day in Times Square yesterday with a machete. One person was stabbed in both legs, but police say he is stable. And West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin is leaving the Democratic Party and registering as an independent. He'll still continue to caucus with Senate Democrats, but last November, Manchin announced he would not seek a 3rd term in 2024. And Marianne Robinson, the mother of former First Lady Michelle Obama, has died. Her family tells NBC News she passed peacefully this morning and that the family is unsure how to move on without her. Former President Barack Obama credits Robinson with keeping his daughters grounded while growing up in the White House. She was 86 years old. And over in Minneapolis, a community is mourning the loss of a police officer who was killed last night in an ambush. Now, police say 36-year-old officer Jamal Mitchell was responding to a double shooting, and when he showed up, he tried helping someone who was hurt, but that person shot him instead. The violent shootout also left 2 others dead, including the suspect who allegedly shot Mitchell, and another officer and a firefighter were also hurt, but they are expected to be okay. Minneapolis's mayor says the city has lost a hero with Mitchell's passing.
This officer gave the ultimate sacrifice to protect and save the lives of others. His life, his service, and his name will forever be remembered in the city of Minneapolis.
NBC News correspondent Maggie Vespa joins us now. Maggie, I mean, he went to help the shooter here. What else are we learning about this ambush?
Well, it's hard to say that definitively, even because there's so much we don't know at this point. He went to help someone, authorities said, who appeared to be injured. And yeah, he was responding to the scene of a double shooting. And they say that person, once Officer Mitchell went to help him, pulled out a gun and shot him. And then this shootout ensued. We saw our affiliate talk to someone who kind of filmed the aftermath, filmed the shootout, and you can hear several gunshots firing. The suspect, who authorities have yet to name, was shot and killed in that shootout, presumably by police officers, but authorities aren't even confirming that at this point. So it's even hard, Gadi, to nail down that he would have been the shooter in either of these double shootings. It is just a chaotic scene. It is a tragic situation. Right now, basically, we're waiting on any information on who this person was who killed this Minneapolis police officer, a 38-year-old father who was engaged to be married. He was a beloved member of the force. And then we're kind of waiting to see how these scenes are connected, because we also had an apartment 2 blocks away where someone was found dead. That's one of the 3 people killed that authorities are referring to. So a lot of questions looming over this. And meanwhile, I mean, it's just a grief-stricken city in Minneapolis tonight. A lot of people in shock.
Yeah, heartbreaking. And I mean, we heard the mayor just now call him a hero. And this is not the first time he's been called a hero, right?
No, it's not. I mean, he hasn't even been on the force for 2 years. And very quickly, everybody who works in the news industry in Minneapolis was really quick to remember back in February of 2023. So last February, they covered Minneapolis police announced basically that 2 of their officers, Officer Mitchell being one of them, had responded to a call, saw a house on fire, ran in and saved an elderly couple who was in that home, didn't know that it was burning. Officer Mitchell was on his 3rd day on the job when that happened, and they were obviously honored for their bravery. So what you're about to see is from February of last year. It's body camera video from his partner, and you'll see him in part of the clip. And then our affiliate CARE interviewed Officer Mitchell in the aftermath of that last year, so you hear what he had to say about the experience. Take a look at this.
Get down, get down, get down, get down. You don't have any shoes on. That's okay, get out. Are you alone? Get down. Are you alone, ma'am? No, my husband's right behind me. Here we go. Shoes on for minutes. Is there anyone else in the house, guys? No. Okay.
Saying we're not trained to running the fires, but being in the field of policing is a potential. You know, we're here to serve our community, and we're often first on scene.
Yeah, so that soundbite, as you can imagine, Gadi, is getting a lot of play now in the aftermath of this shooting. Officer Mitchell being remembered by so many for his bravery, for how it's almost chilling now to see how directly he talked about the risks they take every day when they're on the front lines, police and first responders. And we should note there was a law enforcement procession last night to bring his body from the hospital to the medical examiner's office. It was hundreds of cars long. Gadi.
Wow, Maggie, I mean, just to see those two people and to know that they may not be here without him, it's just heartbreaking all around.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for your reporting. And still to come, a jury is deciding whether Chad Daybell should get the death penalty for the murders of his first wife and his current wife's 2 children. Those details are coming up next, so stay tuned. Hey, welcome back. Here are some of the stories happening out west that we're following tonight. Paul Pelosi was in court today to testify against his attacker, David DePape. Pelosi outlined the moments before he was attacked with a hammer, including calling police, leading DePape downstairs and trying to appease him before cops arrived. DePape is facing attempted murder charges in the current state trial, but was already sentenced to 30 years in the federal case. And a magnitude 3.6 earthquake shook parts of L.A. today. That quake's epicenter was near Ojai. It's about the same place that little hurricane we had back in August hit. This one was a little bit weaker, though, but enough to be felt across the region by everyone except for me, apparently. There's been no damage reported so far. And a mountain lion was spotted in Agora Hills, California. You can see it hop on a wall in just a second here. Now, the homeowner says that they woke up early in the morning to a notification on their phone saying a person was detected in their side yard. They were pretty spooked when they saw that wild cat just chilling up there. This could be a preview of what's to come once a nearby wildlife crossing overpass is finished. We're going to be telling you about that more soon. And while most of the country was focused on that guilty verdict in New York, over in Boise, Idaho, another jury found apocalyptic author Chad Daybell guilty of killing his ex-wife and his wife's 2 kids. Now, the jury found him guilty on all the counts yesterday, including first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and insurance fraud. And you might remember Chad Daybell and his wife, Lori Vallow, as the doomsday couple who claimed they could tell if somebody was possessed by evil spirits that turned them into zombies, and the only way to save them was by killing them. The prosecution has argued this was all a scheme for the couple to get life insurance money and to be together in the midst of their affair. Now, Lori Vallow was sentenced to life in prison without parole last year for her role in killing her 2 kids, Joshua Vallow and Tylee Ryan. And Daybell now faces the death penalty as the jury deliberates sentencing. So let's bring in NBC News correspondent Elwin Lopez to tell us more. So, Elwin, how did we get to this verdict here? This case is so bizarre.
Yeah, and the case has been in the making for years, and it's had a lot of bizarre twists and turns to it. And the case really centers around Chad Daybell's extreme religious beliefs, right? And that he believes that people have like evil spirit, dark spirit, or light spirit, and that those with dark spirits need to die. And in order to understand all of this, we have to go back to when Chad Daybell met Lori Vallow. He was married to his wife, Tammy, of 29 years, and Lori Vallow's children, Tylee and JJ, went missing in 2019. A little less than a month after that, they find Chad Daybell's wife, Tammy, dead in their marital bed under suspicious circumstances. And then in 2020, they find the children buried on Daybell's property. Their remains were charred, one of them dismembered, and Tammy's body, Chad Daybell's wife, was exhumed, and they found that she did not die of natural causes, but that she died due to homicide by asphyxiation. So really gruesome details here, but a lot of twists and turns in order to understand exactly how we came to where we are today.
Such a haunting timeline, especially when you consider that he was not in jail for a lot of that, right? Now, the death penalty is on the table here. Yes. What's the latest with that?
So prosecutors are seeking the death penalty in this case, specifically because of how heinous they say the crimes are, right? So we didn't say that in Lori Vallow's case. When she was convicted of murder, she was sentenced to life, and he now is facing the death penalty. And remember that these jurors are deciding, the ones that decided his fate in terms of being guilty are now deciding whether he's going to face the death penalty or not. And keep in mind that they've seen these gruesome images, right? So they've been through all of this throughout the trial. They saw JJ and Tylee's happy faces as kids, and then they saw the images of their remains charred. So they're the ones who are going to ultimately make that decision as to whether or not he is going to be facing the death penalty in this case.
Such a gruesome, gruesome killing. Thank you so much, Ellen.
Thank you.
Before we go, it is time for the future of everything. It's one of our favorite topics tonight, space, but it's also one of the things I am most terrified of. Black holes. We are learning more than ever about super mysterious, super massive black holes and how they collide. You don't want to miss this one, so stay tuned. Tonight on The Future of Everything, we are diving into not one, but millions of black holes, and not just your everyday brain-scramblingly big black holes, but super massive black holes, because for the first time, scientists just detected kind of like a sound of sorts from deep space. It could rewrite our understanding of the universe, and here it is. No, not this. This looks very cool, but it's actually a graph chart. That's it. That's it right there. If I understand this right, this is the scientific version of millions of supermassive black holes all chanting Om as they merge together at the same time and reminding us, little teeny tiny humans, that there are way bigger things out in the universe than whatever is happening here on Earth this week. And instrumental in all of this, and this discovery, is astrophysicist and researcher Chiara Mingarelli, who teaches physics at Yale. Chiara, thank you so very much for joining us. First off, before we get into all of that, can you set the cosmic scene for us? How big are these supermassive black holes that we now know collide?
Well, I'm so happy to be here to tell you about supermassive black holes. I mean, what's cooler? So yes, these supermassive black holes are 100 million to 1 billion, maybe more times the mass of the sun. And if that's not crazy enough, the signal that we found with nanograv is not only just one of these supermassive black holes, but is the cosmic merger history of pairs of these black holes. That means that there's two of them that found each other somehow and are starting to slowly merge. And these mergers take 25 million years. They emit gravitational waves, which are ripples in the fabric of space-time itself. They move at the speed of light, and these wavelengths are light years long. And it took us 15 years to find this first evidence that these supermassive black holes not only merge with each other, but emit these very low frequency gravitational waves.
The way you put it, the Om, makes you think maybe this is like the most beautiful cosmic relationship collision of all time, but it also seems terrifying given the scale, the exoplanets, the suns that are getting swallowed up. But I do want to brush up on our astronomy here, because you made this discovery using pulsars. So take it easy on us, starting with like, how do pulsars work? How did you make this discovery?
Sure. Well, I'm part of a team of over 100 scientists who've been working on this project for over a decade. So it's certainly not my discovery, but, you know, it belongs to the whole field. And the way that we did it was by monitoring things called pulsars. So maybe pulsars aren't as scary as black holes, but these pulsars rotate around almost 100 times a second. It's like, and it has the mass of more than 1.5 times the mass of the sun on occasion. And so as they rotate around, they can beam radio waves towards the Earth, right? And so it does this so quickly that it's as if you put something that's more massive than the sun, compressed it to the size of Manhattan, and put it in a blender, right? And then saw flashes of radio waves every time it spun around. These are really extreme objects. But the reason that we use them to look for gravitational waves is because they're excellent clocks. To find gravitational waves, what we do is that we look for advances in the pulsar pulses arrival times at the Earth. So the gravitational waves change the distances between objects. And so the pulsars get closer to the Earth and then further away, and then closer to the Earth and further away. And so the pulses, those flashes that they're sending us when they're put into their cosmic blenders, right? The pulses arrive early, and then they arrive late because they have less distance to travel and then more distance to travel. And this stretching and squashing takes so long that it took us 15 years to find the first evidence that this was happening in our galaxy.
And that is what the ripple of space-time, I guess, kind of looks like from our perspective.
Exactly.
That is wild, wild stuff.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
I could talk to you for days. I will be haunted by everything you said. My brain short-circuited when you talked about the mass of the sun condensed down into like Manhattan. I got to go rewind what you said, process that. But Kiara, thank you so very much for joining us. We can't wait to have you on again with your next discovery. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Sure. Meanwhile, much closer in the cosmos, NASA is getting busy with some intense training as it gets ready to put humans up on the moon for the first time in more than 5 decades. And who better to check out these preparations than our very own Al Roker? He met up with the Artemis II crew to give us an inside look at what it takes to make a lunar landing. Check this out.
And liftoff of Artemis I. We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
Perched atop NASA's most powerful rocket, an uncrewed Orion capsule leapt skyward. An almost 240,000-mile trip, paving the way for humans to return to the lunar surface for the first time in 50-plus years.
This has got to be one of the most proud moments of my life.
But first, a crew of 4 will embark on a 10-day mission, orbiting the moon, a critical test flight, making sure that all systems are go.
When people ask you, why do we need to go back to the moon? What do you say?
What do we call it when humanity does something great? A moonshot. And so our generation now has the opportunity to have our own moonshots, and I think that is a win that the whole world needs.
That's Mission Commander Reed Weissman, a Navy captain who spent 165 days on the space station. Victor Glover flew on the second SpaceX Dragon mission, and he'll be the Artemis II pilot. Mission specialist Christina Cook, spending nearly a year on the space station and was on the first all-female spacewalk. Jeremy Hansen, mission specialist and the first Canadian to lead an astronaut class. This will be his first time in space.
We are humans. We are built to explore. We know how to live off our planet. Now it's time to push humanity out into the solar system.
The crew training in Houston invited me to spend a day to see if I had the right stuff. My first test at the controls of the Orion flight simulator with a spectacular view.
You're sitting in the commander spot, and I'm sitting in the pilot seat right now.
I get some on-the-job training on my very first mission to the moon.
This goes in, out, up, down, left, and right.
Our trip today, docking with an orbiting space station.
We're going to drift over. When that cross is in the center, tap it to the right 3 times, and that'll stop the motion.
It's not exactly like learning to drive a car, but I think I got it.
And what do you think? Is he going to make the crew or not?
I think he's going to make the crew.
All that work has worked up an appetite. So, into the Orion capsule simulator for a space food taste test.
This little briefcase is our oven.
Space oven. Used to cook everything from couscous to kale and what the team calls the gold standard.
That's the brisket, macaroni and cheese.
And you like that, right?
That's good. Do your taste buds change in space?
Well, your body's going through a lot of changes. You have fluid shifting to your head, making you feel slightly congested, so food can taste bland. And we have a few things like garlic paste, pesto, and sriracha, just
hot
to
sauces.
activate those taste buds.
After lunch, time for a little ride. Artemis astronaut Rajachari and I took a spin around the NASA rock yard, built to mimic the surfaces of the moon and Mars.
Don't try this at home.
We're inside a moon rover, an electric RV, where astronauts will be able to work and sleep while exploring the craters and other surfaces on the moon.
The rover allows us to get into places that you would never get on foot.
This is the ultimate off-road vehicle.
Yeah. Off-planet vehicle. Yeah.
Next, we're off to mission control for a warm welcome and an out-of-this-world phone call.
Well, hello, space station. This is Al Roker. How are you guys doing?
We're doing really good, but even better now.
One of the things I've noticed, I was in the Orion capsule. You guys, you got a mansion compared to what they're going to be in.
This is almost the size of a 5-bedroom
of house on the inside. You could use the ceiling a lot, so you could fit a lot more people in small spaces. At home, you don't take advantage of the ceiling.
And finally, a time-honored tradition.
We have come to the decision that you have the humor and the technical acumen, truly the right stuff to join this crew. So, Victor, will you do him the honors?
We would love to present you with the official astronaut office coin, and we always give those in a handshake. So thank you. Thank you for
Bring it in.
Thank you.
Bring it in.
Oh,
Welcome, Al.
wow. That's what an honor. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Oh, my God.
The right stuff handshake, casual phone call to the space station. Man, Commander Roker, if you are headed to the moon soon, pack light because I will definitely be stowing away in your luggage. That's going to do it for us tonight. I'm Gadi Schwartz. We'll see you here Monday. But until then, stay tuned now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.